And welcome. We had so much fun last week talking Euro quarterfinals that I decided to bring my good friend Jason Russell back to do it again. And this time we've got more marquee matches in store. We've got two huge matches over the weekend in international football. We've got the Copa America final, the two heavyweights. Is anybody surprised? Brazil and Argentina. Where I think, Jason, I think we're more surprised when it isn't one of those two. If those two teams aren't playing in the South American finals, aren't we?
For sure. I mean, obviously every cycle you've got a team or a country that produces some talent, as you come through. I mean, I was really impressed with Paraguay, for instance, this go around. But yeah, I mean, it's never a surprise when these two are battling in a final.
Yeah, and Chile had a nice run, with the Alexis Sanchez group. Uruguay, when you're talking Luis Sanchez, and I've been a big fan of Edison Cavani, just not for the least of which I think he looks like a Bond villain. Mm-hmm. And he kind of plays like one, mm-hmm. He scares me. I was like, whenever he has the ball, and I'm like, forget what y'all think, everybody's gonna say he's washed up, he's old, and he makes a transfer move. I'm like, that man scares the hell out of me when he's got the ball at his feet.
He does. He's also a handsome man. I mean, let's be real. We're going to talk about a couple of them today. I know we're talking about Giroud later, so maybe that's the topic for today.
Yeah, and Morata, we'll probably hit on him too.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay. And our good friend Jeremy is here. Jeremy was upset with the Spain loss. We hit on Jeremy's from our Broncos for Breakfast crew, and I told him we were going to do this, and I said sorry about the Spain loss. But I think he'll have fun. We'll have fun still talking some of these other games. And we mentioned the Copa America, and obviously, probably for us, the bigger one that we're interested in is Italy-England in the Euro finals. I certainly know several. A lot of the players. I watch them in England and France and in the big leagues, but I watch all of the players in the Euros, in the England and Italy games. So. We'll talk a little bit about how they got here. We'll talk a little bit about where they're going, and we'll give some predictions. And then we'll talk a little about Olivier Giroud as a Chelsea fan, let me point the right direction, as an Arsenal fan sitting next to me. Olivier Giroud has played a big part in both of the clubs that we support. But I feel like his legacy might be a little bit different between the two. And a lot of that has to do with expectations. So I want to hit on that before we get out of here. Mm-hmm. We got some people that are coming in. Please hit the like, subscribe, share button as you come in. That helps us see more viewers, have more interaction, and have more fun doing this. Last week went really well, Jason. I think this week we've got a really good topic, and we'll start getting a rhythm going. And I think we've talked about we want to start doing this at least weekly when the season kicks off, when the cup seasons kick off.
Yeah, man. I mean, anytime we can talk soccer, I'm in. So I love it. I love right now too when you just got so much activity. Not only that, we've got the two major tournaments, coming to finals here, and then you've got the transfer window, the start of the Premier League, and all the other leagues around the world. So.
Well, and that's what's fun about the beautiful game is it never stops. It might not be fun for the players, but when we start looking at these players, I had mentioned, and this is for Jeremy here, a Spain fan, watching Alvaro Morata play. I'm like, this guy could really do with a good dose of some like an MMA training, where if he went and spent 3 months at a gym and just really started to trust himself and got tougher, mentally stronger, and he's a big guy and had the mental toughness to say, I can whip anybody's ass out here. I think it would do wonders for his confidence on the field. But when our international footballers supposed to do something like that, they don't take but a week off here and there.
Yeah, no, the schedule is grueling, right? I mean,
it's great for the fans.
All the major soccer entities are winning, and certainly players make a lot of money, right? But at some point, and we saw this with many players, as a big Arsenal fan, as with Alexis Sanchez, who was playing like 70 matches a season, and now the guy looks like he's 100. Playing on dodgy legs and all of that, right? But on the Morata topic, right? I mean, he's a massively frustrating player because you just see his ability is amazing, right? I mean, he's played for huge clubs, and hell, the goal he scored, against Italy was a fantastic finish. But of course, he had two others that fell to him that you're like, what happened there, right?
He has too much time to think about it. Yeah. He's a reaction striker because he's not overly confident, which is why I said 2 penalties ago, you don't want this guy on penalties because you don't want him thinking about stuff. But when he's got a quick volley, quick header, anything like that, then he's pretty good because he's technically sound. But if he has to think about that, and that's what made his finish against Italy really good is because he actually had time to get through. Nice little 1-2, gets through, gets his head up, and finishes near post calmly. But then, the penalty comes around, and again, he's not necessarily you want to have on penalties. Let's hit on the Copa America first. Let's review just a little bit about how they got there. The topic has always been, Messi and the internet and Argentina is, can he truly be the greatest all time if he doesn't have that major trophy or more? And for me, it's not even Copa America; it's World Cup. Can he be considered the greatest? For me, I say yes. You can still consider him the greatest, but this is his chance to at least put an X on that and get that monkey off his back. Although that burden of never won a major trophy with Argentina. He's played really well this tournament.
He has. Yeah. And it's a great point too, right? I mean, you've got the Messi Ronaldo debaters across the world, and everyone has their pick for best of all time or whatever. Certainly the thing against Messi is he just hasn't won anything, right? I mean, he won the Olympics in 2008, but the same with Neymar, right? He won the Olympics in 2016, but they don't have any major international trophies. So this is a big deal. Brazil's coming into this match hot. They haven't lost, I think, 3 years, a competitive match. And they're certainly seeming to take this tournament pretty seriously as we look at forward to the World Cup. I think Brazil probably are favorites in this match. I mean, it's at home, right? So I think there's a bit to say about that as well. But again, I'm a huge Messi fan. I would always say he's 1A and Ronaldo's 1B in my mind. But yeah, it should be a great match.
Well, one of the phrases I use all the time is I'm not going to argue about levels of elite. I'll tell you what I think, but I'm not going to argue with it because it's too close. So I prefer Lionel Messi. I like his all-around game a little bit better. But when you look at like what Ronaldo does better, the aerial is Lionel Messi will never have. The pace, the ruthlessness. He's certainly capable of bringing other people in the field. It's like you can't go wrong picking either one. I'm a fan of Messi's overall game. So, like you said, 1A, 1B. But if you were to say, I think Ronaldo's ahead of him, I certainly wouldn't argue with you on that. Now, somebody who's been trying to take up that mantle of one of the greatest, if not the greatest in the game, is Neymar. And this might be a big tournament for them, but again, it's not Neymar versus Messi; it's Argentina versus Brazil. If Argentina has any, I'll go with a hockey reference here. If Argentina has any advantage for me right now, they got a hot goalie. They got a hot goalie. Emil Martinez put on as good a display in the penalty shootouts as I've ever seen. I mean, he looked 10 feet wide out there. And I know you got to watch him a lot at Arsenal, and lament his loss. He was a big signing for Aston Villa and did a big part in their rise this year. But I think that's probably their best advantage. As good as Ederson is, Martinez is just hot right now.
He is, and like you said, he's a huge man. 6'5", wingspan, and as you were talking about, because there were no fans there, and you could actually hear them talking. And he's talking through every penalty, and his intimidation tactics were pretty incredible. And yeah, I got to see him a lot. When Bernd Leno got hurt, and a couple seasons ago when we won the FA Cup, or Arsenal won the FA Cup, Emmy had an incredible season. I mean, literally, the guy was a backup his whole career, and likely could have moved him for couple million pounds, maybe. And then all of a sudden get 20 because he has an incredible run. In hindsight, 2020, right? I mean, Leno was one of the best keepers in the world at the time.
I thought it was 10. So okay, 20 is good. 20. I thought it was half of that. So I was
and you may be right. It may be somewhere in between. Yeah, I mean, as far as pounds go, but yeah. And again, Emmy's just been amazing for them, right? I mean, the guy, like I said, he wasn't starting for Argentina, and then now his star is rising. Clearly, again, his confidence level is high. And as we talk about goalkeepers, I mean, they seem to get better as they get older.
And if you look back, just a couple tournaments ago, Willy Caballero was starting in goal for Argentina. What a massive upgrade. No offense to Willy, but Willy is, probably 36, 37 years old while he's doing that, and was never at the level that Martinez is playing at right now. So, kind of like going when Liverpool went to Alisson. What an upgrade they had. They had one player that cost them basically a Champions League, and they get Alisson. Okay, well that's a pretty good move. Right now, I kind of look at who doesn't have a goalie right now, and Jeremy, sorry to say it, but it's Spain. It's like they go from one of the best in the world, De Gea, who's been out of form a little bit, and now it was like now they've got mistakes happening in the back all the time. So. Who do you think? Who are some of the matchups you think to watch? What's something you're looking forward to watching this game, other than Neymar and Messi, obviously?
Yeah, I mean, I think the interesting matchup is just going to be the Argentinian back line, which is again has been not great over the last half dozen years or so. I mean, right? I mean, they score goals, they seem to overpower teams, but defensively they can be dodgy at times. I mean, in the World Cup. For instance. So I think, again, having Emmy in the goal is probably providing a lot of confidence for them, right? So I think that front line, that Brazil front line against the Argentina's back line is going to be really, really interesting.
Yeah, that's a nice security blanket to have back there, because I'm not a huge fan of Otamendi. He had his time, but I don't know if now's it. If you go and look at the other side of things, I am a huge fan of Thiago Silva, who is maybe making his last run at things, and Ederson can certainly play. At any given time, I think Martinez is better today, like right now, he's in form, but Ederson's world class. I look at it a little bit, and it's hard. It's always hard to pick against Brazil. It just is. But if you got a hot goalie and you got Lautaro Martinez up front and Lionel Messi up front, that's a pretty good duo. I almost feel like I've got to go with Argentina on this one and go against what has happened. The history of not being able to win that major tournament. I think it's their time. I think this is it.
Yeah, I mean, and certainly like Argentina if they can get it to penalties. But yeah, I agree. I think Argentina can win this match. I think that a couple interesting things too. I mean, in the few matches I've watched of Brazil, I mean, Fred, who we all love to make fun of at Manchester United, if you're not a Manchester United fan, has been really good. I mean, and maybe it's because he's playing next to Casemiro, who's phenomenal. But he's looked really, really good. And again, I think Fred's one of those players.
Fred had a pretty good season with United this year.
He did. I mean,
he had a solid season with United this year. And again, it goes back to sorry to interrupt and then change subjects, but it's like give some of these guys some time. I mean, where would John Stones be if we had given up on him 2 years ago? Now he's leading the line for Manchester City and England, and he was a big bust just 2 seasons ago.
Yeah, and Solskjaer seems to have found something a little more in Fred, in terms of where he's playing him. But yeah, again, I think the midfield for Brazil is pretty solid, So it should be a really good match. Again, we're all eyes have been focused on the Euros, obviously for good reason. When you've got 7 of the top 10 teams in the world playing in that tournament. But when Brazil and Argentina play, it's exciting, especially when they're playing for something that's meaningful. So I think it's going to be a fantastic match.
Yeah, and talking about goalies, Jeremy says the U.S. rode the back of Tim Howard for years. I actually use Tim Howard as an example because that generation of players in the U.S. were good. They made the final 16. Had Germany on the ropes in the World Cup. They were good. The next cycle was not good. They missed the Olympics. They missed the World Cup. Howard kind of bridged the gap between both of those guys. And, we've talked about before, Jason, I was like, Tim Howard's pretty close to our age, give or take a year or two. And
27, 28.
Yeah, I never played for a coach who had actually played the game. That's what our generation had to deal with coming through. So the level of instruction that is happening at the youth level is just exponentially better now, and I see it all the time. With our kids, you've got two girls playing academy. I've got a son plays academy, so we see it all the time now, and I'm astounded. Sean is an 09, so that makes him U13. He's being coached by a former Golden Boot winner in the MLS. That's his new coach. My coach at 12 was like my dad.
Yeah, exactly. My dad had like a Coors Light in his hand, like coach from the sideline. Yeah, you're right. I mean, a good friend of ours, his son is their son is 12, and he's ODP here in Atlanta, and he's down to the IMG camp for 2 weeks, and it's like ostensibly like an ID type camp, right? So they're already pitching them, of course, on coming down there, and they want them to send their kid to boarding school basically at IMG. But it's very, very different. I mean, again, when the pay to play model obviously is one that we've been able to fetch a lot of coaches, a lot of experience.
So moving on, we're going to England and Italy. Let's talk a little bit about how they got there. I think there was some controversy around the penalty that got England the winner. What were your thoughts on Raheem Sterling's penalty in that game against Denmark?
Yeah, I mean, my instant reaction was frustration and aggravation. I just never want a match that's certainly England were the better team. There's no question, right? I mean, but how many times have we been on the other side of matches where we're the better team and lost? And I feel like the Danes played a really, really good match strategically. I thought they were managed extremely well. And to give up a penalty like that, I thought it was really light. And I would say this, right? I think had it not been called and gone to VAR, I don't think they would have given a penalty. I really don't think it would have been a penalty. And so that's the lens I look at it through. And I wish that the referees would apply the same logic that the linesmen do when there's an offside, right? They're told to hold the flag, to not raise the flag. And I think the referee shouldn't have blown the whistle there and let it go. And then, let it go to VAR. And I'm not saying VAR is great, but I think VAR could have sorted that out better. And again, was he touched? Yeah. But a 175-pound guy going down that easily is frustrating. And also Sterling has that reputation. Mm-hmm. That said, he has been amazing this tournament. I mean, he's been absolutely, in my mind, he's been the player of the tournament. Even though England has, only given up one goal, I think he's just been behind everything creatively they're doing. So I can say that and say England were the deserving team. They should have won the match, would have won the match. But the penalty to me, dodgy.
Well, and for me, and Jeremy asks, how do you feel about the penalty given to England against Denmark? Also, how do you feel about PKs in general? They are such big momentum swings. Mm-hmm. Before we had already started on that one when I saw this comment come in, I felt I didn't scrutinize it on first replay. I didn't see much contact there. I didn't. Mm-hmm. However, I thought the one on Harry Kane at the other end was a definite penalty. Mm-hmm. I thought that one was a definite penalty. It
was more of a penalty than the Sterling one, for sure.
I don't remember who the defender was, but he reached across his legs with his leg, didn't get any ball, and topples over Kane. I'm like, that was the penalty.
Yeah, and I don't even know if they reviewed it. I mean, I don't even know if it went to VAR at all there.
Yeah, I mean, they're supposed to review every call. They just don't necessarily stop to do further reviews. But I thought that one was a surefire penalty, and then I didn't see much contact on the Sterling one. And the second part of this is also, how do you feel about PKs in general? They're such big momentum swings. Mm-hmm. As I've watched more and more football at this level, I've changed a little bit on how I feel about this. I used to think the punishment should fit the crime, and when you've got a player with his back facing, the sidelines. He's facing out to touch and, gets clipped going away from goal. I'm like, how should that be an automatic goal? That does not fit the crime. He's not in a goal scoring situation. There's no way that's the punishment for that should be someone else's 90% chance at goal. However, as I've watched more and more of this, I'm okay with it. I think having those consequences makes the game open up a little bit more. And it's certainly a strategy to get the ball into the penalty area and put the defenders on their heels. And that's the strategy in it. And I think it helps with goal scoring because it does. It puts defenders on their heels and makes it tougher for them to defend. And I think that's a good thing. So I've kind of changed how I feel about penalties through the years.
And let's be honest, I mean, it's the rule, right? So they understand what the rules are, and that is part of the game. I differ slightly in that I don't know if the punishment fits the crime at times, and so I think for me, like the double jeopardy stuff, right, where player takes someone down and also there's a penalty and they score, yeah, what I don't like to see is a game turn on its head. And I've seen many matches like this as an Arsenal fan that point back to the European, the Cup final in 06, where, Jens Lehmann gets tossed, and then we play, 30 minutes down a man in a match that we were dominating as Barcelona. And to me, that, that shouldn't have happened. And I think I don't like when refs take those things into their hands. That said, it is the rule, and that until they change it, that's how it is, right? If I'm headed to the corner flag through the corner of the box and I get taken down, it's penalty. Yeah.
Going to VAR right now, the biggest problem I have with the game and how it's called right now in the modern game the last couple of years is offsides.
Mm-hmm.
When you're a linesman and you're looking at offsides, you're basically looking at torsos.
Mm-hmm.
Like think of somebody winning a race, when they lean forward like this, you're not looking to see if his shoelace, because he's 2 feet behind a guy where his entire body is behind a guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he stretches out a foot and his big toe is the only part that's in front of him. So you're holding him on, and we needed a slide rule and protractor to figure that out from 60 yards away. That's
Mm-hmm.
nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that to me is that the game was never meant to be officiated like that. I don't know how to fix it. One of the things I've said is you've got one picture and you get to look at it for 10 seconds, just like the official does. And it should be clear and obvious,
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise it should be torsos, forget the big toe, or, the sleeve is sticking out too far, something like that. I'm like, that to me is hurting the game more than anything.
Yeah, that obviously agreed. Needs to get fixed. I mean, especially the upper half of the body as you're leaning to run. You know what I mean? I think that makes no sense. I do think technology will be able to solve this over time. I don't mean VAR. I think there's some technological advances that they can make with the ball and with the players and certain things. I think that could happen over time, or it could be an automatic kind of thing that happens.
Could speed it up like goal line technology. There's no controversy with goal line technology anymore.
Right. No.
Your wrist buzzes, it's goal.
Matter of fact,
we're going.
Matter of fact, and that was a good advent, right? I mean, that was something that I think everyone would argue has been good for the game. So I think there are things they can do. The biggest problem I have with VAR right now is just the amount of time that it takes. Some of these delays are just obscene, and the Euros haven't been too bad. I mean, I will say it hadn't been too bad, but across the board, I think the VAR has been largely disappointing.
I think the Premier League does it about as bad as anybody.
Yeah.
With the time it takes to do something, because I've said we've had replay in the NFL for I don't know how long now, 15 years,
Mm-hmm.
a decade at least.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said from the beginning, 20 seconds. You have 20 seconds to make a call. If you don't make it, if you can't tell that there's a clear and obvious error in 20 seconds, it stands. Let's play ball.
Call stands. Great.
Because it was never meant. Replay was never meant to officiate the minutia. It was meant to fix the big errors. Well, when we start spotting the ball on the goal line and all that type of stuff that we do, bringing out slide rules and protractors to draw grids from a 60-yard pitch, no.
It also gives teams advantages potentially too, right? When you get these breaks and you get to strategize and water and whatever it is. I mean, to me, again, that's one of the beauties of soccer in general, right? Is it's a fluid sport. There aren't breaks. I mean, you get a halftime. That's it. So let's not do that, right? So I'm
and as Jeremy says, they need to punish diving way more. It's the biggest problem in the sport, and the reason non-fans make fun of it. The rolling around is embarrassing. We all agree, especially Jeremy, especially Americans. American soccer players. We grew up kind of getting made fun of.
Mm-hmm.
I was a big kid. So I had a pretty immediate answer. If someone said, "What, are you too scared to play football or baseball?" Something like that. It's like, no, I started playing soccer when I was 5 and I never stopped. I liked the game.
Mm-hmm.
But we kind of took pride in having to be that much tougher because of it, because we were getting made fun of for being soccer players. So,
I mean, I actually try to hold my feet more than I would ever try to go down. And I think, but arguing about the sport as we grew up, I mean, hell, I've had more injuries than anybody I know combined.
I know.
So it's like one of those things where I would just suggest that, that's kind of a silly thing, right? But I think I have always thought an easy solution to this. I think the Americans handle it well. And I've talked about this, but stop the clock. I mean, again, if you stop the clock, I think you're going to stop a lot of this crap that happens. For
me, it's always been retroactive yellow cards.
Mm-hmm.
If someone, because you can't always, not every person that goes down in the box is a dive or a foul. Sometimes they just go down. But but anywhere around the field, the simulation. If there was a review, we can review conduct, violent conduct, fouls, all that kind of stuff. Let's review simulation. And if you're guilty of simulation, you get a card. Those things add up. You know, 5 cards, 5 yellow cards, you miss a match. Let's start having some consequences out there.
And they're starting to do more of that, right? I think that's happening. Again, I just think any of these delays, and I think the Italians were, of course, in the English press were just, taken to the cleaners in that Spain match because of the last however many minutes, they're trying to milk clock. And that's just the gamesmanship that they built in. But again, I think you can avoid this easily, right? I mean, again, if the referee stops the clock, you're not going to have all this histrionics. Like, people aren't going to be laying around because they know they can't add time, right? So I just think that'd be easy. I think after goals, they should stop it. I think the other one is when people are hurt. Not for throw-ins, anything like that, not for balls are out of bounds. But for me, I truly believe they could stop all this stuff.
Well, and getting back on topic, because we could do a whole pod on that kind of stuff too. But getting back on topic a little bit, I want to talk a little about Italy and that game against Spain. And Italy is so dangerous because the Italians can bunker in if they need to. They can. But what they have now that I don't remember them having in the past is just a lethal counterattack. Chiesa and Barella are just really good on the move. Jorginho in kind of pulling the strings. Locatelli comes in and does some good stuff. And then they're still strong in the center. So that they can beat a team as being on the front foot and beat a team like Spain where they're absorbing pressure. They didn't beat them. It was 1-1. But I think that's what makes them so dangerous.
I totally agree. And we talked about this a bit last week, right? Is they're a much more dynamic team, right? I mean, their ability to take people on 1v1 is unbelievable these days. I mean, again, we've always viewed Italians as the 1-0, bunker down, hold the lead, take a lot of punishment. And granted, I mean, Spain were really good. I mean, holding the ball and moving the ball. I mean, they just can't finish, right? So I thought it was a fantastic match. I think it was great from a neutral's perspective to watch.
It was, and I'm hoping, and I think it'll be a lot the same with England and Italy. And I think one of the matchups to watch, Saka was the first man off, but is there any reason to think he won't start on Sunday at the right wing?
It's a tough one. I mean, I tell you what, I mean, Southgate's so loaded, you got Foden and you've got the Grealish options. I personally think, of course, I think Saka should start. I think he deserves it, earned it. He's played incredibly well. I mean, gosh, if you have him and Sterling on either side with Kane flank, I mean, that's pretty incredible. If I were Southgate, clearly I'm not, I'd consider taking off one of Phillips or Rice. And for me, I would probably take Rice off, insert Grealish in, and I think you got a little more balance instead of this. They play a little defensive for me. I mean, Declan Rice is a recycler, right? I mean, he's plays the ball backwards. Calvin Phillips seems to be a little more positive, tries to find space a little more. They're a little redundant in my mind. So we'll see what he does. I mean, he's stuck with this lineup, this formation, pretty much. The entire tournament having those two guys next to one another. But I could see Saka starting, and I could see him coming off around 60, 65 again, depending on what's going on.
And I think that's going to be, one of the key matchups out there because, Palmieri, Emerson's in, the Chelsea left back who's been in and out of Chelsea's lineup for his 3 years with the club. So he's susceptible. He's susceptible to getting beat defensively. So I think if you're going to find a weakness in that defense, that's going to be it. With that injury, pronounce his name for me because I don't want to butcher it too bad. Spinazzola.
Yeah, Spinazzola. Yeah.
Yep, and he was playing so well at left back and tears his Achilles. And Palmieri comes in who can do a job, but I don't think he's on the same level that Spinazzola.
No, I mean, I think that Saka could and should roast Emerson if they allow that to happen. I mean, they're going to have to double him because he takes advantage of players like that.
And the other part of that, Jason, is we were talking about the player of the tournament. And one of the players of the tournament for me has been Kyle Walker. So, that partnership that they've been able to get. Now, Walker is going to have to be more defensive minded because he's got to be leery of the counterattack because Stones and Maguire don't have the pace to keep up with the counterattack of Italy. Walker does. So he's going to have to play back a little bit. But
Scott, what's the one thing you and I have always talked about, the thing you can't coach?
Pace.
I mean,
speed and size.
He's got it. I mean, and it's like, for all of his, or some of his deficiencies, I mean, the guy can fly. And so his recovery and ability to ball recover is amazing. You know, these errors of Stones or Maguire are a little slower. I mean, he was, like you said, he's been unbelievable, and I've never been his biggest fan. But I think in this side, he does a lot for them. You know, his ability to win back balls and recover is amazing.
Yeah, and Jeremy says Italy has always had great defense and counterattacks. What this team is elite at is finishing the chances. And what I mean by that, when I was saying it, Jeremy, is yeah, Italy has always been the team to bunker and counter, but now they don't have to bunker and counter. They can get forward and they can possess and they can be on the front foot. And I think their counterattack now is better than it's been. So I think that they have much more balance and they can beat you in so many different ways. That's what makes them so dangerous. So for me, that's one of the key matchups. Now, you mentioned Declan Rice as someone. For me, I was thinking the other direction. I'd want Grealish in there for sure. I'd want Grealish in there. I think you were talking about guys that scare you when they've got the ball. Jack Grealish scares me to death when he's got the ball. He's calm. He's either going to pick out a good pass or he's going to get fouled. He's going to take a foul because he's good at shielding the ball and getting in the way and going down, relatively easily. So I would want Jack Grealish in there too, and then find some way for Baca and probably Sancho to split time on the right side. There is where I would go. But then, then we're still Foden. We're talking about, I think everybody we've mentioned, other than Kyle Walker, is probably under 26 years old. This is an exciting young team for England.
Oh, it is. I mean, and again, it's a great preview for the World Cup, right? I mean, you've got these teams that are like Spain and England, have younger squads, attacking squads they're going to be super interesting. Back to the Italy point, though, I think Italy definitely has an advantage in the midfield. I think that's where they can win this match. And, you've got, in the center, Verratti, Jorginho, and then Barella. They've got a better midfield again, especially if Grealish doesn't start. So I think that's where they can probably take advantage of England. And England's going to try to use their pace, obviously, and get the ball out of the wings. And
then being able to bring Locatelli in off the bench. But, could we find a spot for Verratti in this team? Yes, we could. He was outstanding against Spain. He was really, really good. So
good.
Where are you going with this one?
Yeah,
prediction time.
Yeah, I like Italy 2-1 in extra time.
I picked Italy, last week when there were 8 teams left. So I'm gonna stick with them. I haven't seen anything that's changed my mind right now. Again, I'm gonna just kind of reiterate what I've said. I like the balance. I like the way they can beat you in a couple different ways. I don't think Luke Shaw and Kyle Walker have been tested like they're about to be. And the Stones Maguire part, even that they've only given up 1 goal and nothing from open play, they're about to get tested more in this game than they have in the rest of the tournament, I think.
Well, and, you just have to say there's something to be said for, Bonucci and Chiellini. They're, what are they, 34 years old, 35?
Well, and Harry Kane's going to beat you with his brain and technique, not necessarily with pace and all this. So that falls into the hands. If I've got 2 center backs that I want to put on Harry Kane, it's these 2. It's Chiellini and Bonucci. So maybe you got to go somewhere else. Maybe Kane is the guy who only plays 60 minutes, and you drop Sterling in the middle and let them deal with his pace.
Yeah, agreed. Another something I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about, because of course you watch Jorginho. Is there a better penalty taker than him? And if there is, I don't know who it is, because it's almost unstoppable.
He's pretty good, and what we talked about is you've got to have a little bit of arrogant ass in you to be a good penalty taker. And that's why I've said, I said I was going to try and go through the entire pod without mentioning his name. I'm not going to make it. We're talking, some Brazil, but, that's what makes Willian such a great penalty taker, is no one has more misguided faith in his abilities than him.
That's right.
But he can strike a ball, and he's completely arrogant, and he is a great penalty taker. So, Willian was on penalties when Jorginho was out last season before last, his last season at Chelsea, and got to stat pad himself into a huge contract by taking, making 5 penalties, 5 for 5, I think. But yeah, I agree. Jorginho is, I think he missed 2 for Chelsea and kind of fell off a little bit, but that's just embarrassing, and how that happens. And on the penalty, going back to the question about the penalty that put England in, I felt so bad for Schmeichel. I didn't really cringe when the penalty happened, but I don't like to see guys get beat on fluky type of mistakes. He makes a save. As a goalie, you're thinking one thing: stop the ball, stop the ball, stop the ball, stop the ball. Could he have done better? Could he have caught it? Maybe. But you got one job there, and it's to stop the ball, especially after all these penalty kicks everybody's been taking. And have it go right back to Harry Kane. I felt really bad for them.
Yeah, there was that immediate great save, and then
I just went, no, not like that. Don't get beat like that. And and I think, Jeremy, we all feel this way. I don't want this coming down to a penalty or penalties in the end. I don't either. I don't think anybody does. Penalties isn't a way to win or lose a champ. I'll take it if I'm on the winning side, but it doesn't feel quite right.
Is there, by the way, is there a better, is that the right word? A better shithousing team than Italy? I mean, did you see Chiellini and with Jordi Alba before penalties where they were shaking the ref's hands and he was slapping him around and picking him up? And the guy's authentic, but it was also, there's gamesmanship there, right? I mean, he's just messing with him. And it was one of those just 2 minutes of just like an SNL skit, where you could tell Jordi Alba was annoyed and Chiellini just kept smacking him and picking him up and pushing him and just.
Yeah, I might come down on his foot on that one. Oh, sorry, I just stomped on your foot on the way down. You probably shouldn't have picked me up. But yeah, they're capable. I get frustrated watching La Liga sometimes. I call it the referee gangbang. And you see where there's a foul called and they get surrounded by 8 players. I'm like, I would like a rule. And if I was reffing at this level, I'd start off by saying the first person to approach me that isn't either involved in the foul or the captain gets a yellow card, flat out. That's how it's going to get handled. But speaking of gentlemen here, we'll move on. I think we both had Italy in that game against England, and I had Argentina. Who'd you pick with Argentina, Brazil?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Argentina and on penalties.
All right, so we are in agreement on that. We'll see how it goes. I feel better about Italy, and I feel like 60-40 on both of these. Like I wouldn't want anything riding on these two. But I like Italy a little bit more, and I like Argentina a little bit more. But neither result would surprise me. Now, as a Chelsea supporter and Arsenal supporter, Olivier Giroud's been in the news. It looks like he is going to get a move to AC Milan. Chelsea extended his contract basically just to say, help decide where he can move. We don't want you to make a move within the Premier League. And if you do move, we want to get a little scratch out of it. So I think they're going to get about £2 million or £2 million for extending his contract. Now, he spent a lot of time at Arsenal. What is the general consensus on how Arsenal fans think of Olivier Giroud?
Yeah, I mean, I think his legacy is an interesting one. Certainly, he won't go down as one of Arsenal fans' favorites, but he was very well liked, right? I mean, he was always a pretty affable guy, a lot of smiling. I think he took a lot of the younger players under his wing as well, and he had some amazing goals. That said, he did cause some divisiveness the last several seasons because he's a striker that misses a lot of chances. He gets involved in a lot. He's great with his head, right? I mean, he scores a lot of headers, but man, he can be frustrating. And then I think, let's be honest, going across town to a big rival and, obviously winning trophies, some of the luster from him, in terms of his likability is worn off. So I know Arsenal fans are like, yeah, he was fine, but now we're kind of writing him off. And there's also this other subplot where he is chasing Henry's goal scoring record for France. And so, most Arsenal fans, all Arsenal fans don't want that to happen.
Yeah, so unless it was in an Arsenal shirt. Yeah, unless it was in an Arsenal shirt, so that can happen. So and I think this goes to expectations a little bit. It's like with Arsenal, you kind of wanted Olivier Giroud to take over and be the guy. At Chelsea, he was there as a fireman. I mean, he needed to save the mistake that at the time was Alvaro Morata. And for me, when he came in, the striking difference between how they played was we went from Alvaro Morata coming from La Liga, who wanted a foul on everything. If his back was to the ball and he felt contact, he flopped to the ground and looked up and went like this, versus Olivier Giroud, who comes in and is playing a point forward position where he looks like a basketball player in the post, posting up with his back to the goal and just strong. And on top of that, even when he was in and out of the team, the utmost professional, never caused a stir, because he was basically tried to be replaced by Lampard and Tuchel. Whoever came in basically tried to freeze him out, and he always came in, and he always came in and did a job. And he always kept his mouth shut. Yeah, he wants to play, but I think he is universally loved by Chelsea fans for the 3+ years that he spent in blue.
He's a good servant for sure. I mean, again, I would say as an Arsenal player, I really liked him a lot. I think like anyone, when they move on, there's that bit of like, you don't want them to be ultra successful because what did you miss? But again, he has been interesting lately too. He did cause some issues in the France locker room, the whole Mbappe sequence.
Now, do we blame Giroud on that for that?
No, who knows, right?
Are we going to go with Mbappe on this one?
I don't know, right? I mean, who knows? All we know is that locker room was effed up. I mean, you got a lot of big personalities in there.
Yeah, and once that started happening, as we said, it's like France could either win it all or be out quick. That's just one of those teams that goes like this, depending on with all those personalities. I mean, who's more talented than France? Honestly, who?
And yeah, we think we might have talked about this before, but there was a list somebody shared with me of available center backs. And it was like 16 deep that you actually knew all of them, and you would say all of them had a shot to play. I mean, it was that ridiculous how much talent they have. So they'll of course be a force for a long time. I mean, they'll be relevant, for the next cycle for sure.
Yep, for sure. So to wrap up, we're going to finish our predictions. We went 3 for 3. Somehow we didn't really do a prediction of Denmark and who they play, Czechoslovakia. Maybe that's why. But we went 3 for 3 on the quarters in the Euros. So on this one, we both picked Argentina. Which, to me, it's a bit of a surprise. I don't feel good about that one. That's more of a
Brazil's the odds-on favorite. I mean, they're the bookies' favorite. So yeah.
And then we both went with Italy. And again, if both of those are wrong, it wouldn't surprise me a bit. That's what's going to make watching these two matches so much fun. And I think we all agree we want to see it settle on the pitch and not in penalties. But Jason, I appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule to join me again today. And we'll do it again very soon, maybe a wrap-up. And shoot, everybody's reported to training. We're already back into everybody that's not in the tournament is reported to training. We're already back into the season. It's just right around the corner.
Well, thanks for having me, and look forward to some great matches this weekend.
All right, thanks, y'all. Don't forget to hit that like, follow, share, subscribe, whatever you can do. If you're watching this after the fact, leave a comment. We'll certainly join in. I'm pretty OCD about responding to these things. So appreciate you being here, and we'll see you soon. Have a great weekend.
See you.